This week brought a wave of consequential developments reshaping America's domestic and foreign landscape, from battlefield investments and courtroom battles to rising drone threats and escalating global tensions. In Washington, a long-delayed investment agreement between the United States and Ukraine has finally been signed. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Ukrainian Economy Minister Yulia Sviridenko finalized a post-war reconstruction fund aimed at rebuilding Ukraine's economy and unlocking its valuable rare earth mineral reserves. The deal creates a shared investment pool, with future U.S. military aid counting toward the American contribution. In a key shift, Ukraine is no longer required to repay past U.S. support, a sticking point that had held up negotiations. The United States will receive priority access to lucrative mining and infrastructure contracts, though Ukraine retains full ownership of its natural resources. Half the revenue from new permits will be funneled into the joint fund. Ukraine's parliament is set to vote on ratification next week. On Capitol Hill, alarm bells are ringing over a growing threat from above. During a hearing on the surge of drone activity over military bases, Rear Admiral Spedero Jr. issued a stark warning: the U.S. homeland can no longer be considered a safe zone. He admitted the military is poorly equipped to defend against drones on domestic soil and only marginally prepared to protect its own installations. Lawmakers, including Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, criticized the bureaucratic hurdles that prevent swift action against aerial incursions, questioning why the military isn't empowered to shoot drones down without delay. Cases of drone espionage linked to foreign governments, including China, are reportedly on the rise, prompting urgent calls to revise Pentagon engagement rules for unmanned aircraft. Tensions between the United States and China escalated further after Beijing released a scathing video condemning President Trump's trade policies. Produced by China's foreign ministry, the video labeled the U.S. a global bully and insisted China would never kneel to pressure. Without directly naming Trump's 145% tariffs or China's 125% retaliatory measures, the video framed China as a more stable trading partner. It urged global solidarity against U.S. coercion, calling Washington a paper tiger that flip-flops on the global stage. In contrast, Treasury Secretary Bessent called the current tariff levels unsustainable, and Trump hinted they could be lifted if China offers meaningful concessions. In the courts, a Vermont judge has ordered the release of Mohsen Mahdawi, a Palestinian student and protest leader at Columbia University, who was detained by ICE during a citizenship interview. Mahdawi had been held since mid-April, following his participation in Gaza war protests. The ruling allows him to return to New York to attend graduation and begin graduate studies. The federal government argued Mahdawi's activism endangered U.S. foreign policy, citing a determination by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. But his attorneys claimed the arrest was retaliation, noting his founding role in Columbia's Palestinian Student Union and the parallel detention of another activist. Outside the courthouse, Mahdawi addressed supporters directly, declaring his refusal to be intimidated and calling for love to replace fear. Meanwhile, South Asia teeters on the edge of military conflict. Pakistan's Defense Minister Khawaja Asif says an Indian incursion is imminent following a deadly attack in Kashmir that killed 26 tourists. India has accused Pakistan of sponsoring the assault, a charge Islamabad denies. In response, Pakistan has mobilized forces and warned that nuclear weapons would only be used if its existence is threatened. The two countries have begun severing key ties. India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty, while Pakistan closed its airspace to Indian carriers. Asif described India's water-related retaliation as an act of war and appealed to international allies, including Gulf states, China, and the U.S. While President Trump said the countries would resolve the issue themselves, the State Department confirmed diplomatic outreach is ongoing. Back home, new economic data shows that the U.S. economy contracted in the first quarter of 2025, shrinking by 0.3% on an annual basis. This marks the sharpest slowdown since early in the pandemic recovery. Analysts blame the decline on businesses stockpiling inventory ahead of Trump's April tariffs measures that hadn't yet taken effect during the quarter, but caused a 43% surge in imports. That spike weighed heavily on net exports, pulling GDP downward. A 5% drop in government spending added further pressure, though economists caution the report may not tell the full story. In an interview with Time magazine, President Trump declared he would absolutely sign a bill banning members of Congress from trading stocks. He took aim at Nancy Pelosi, accusing her of profiting from insider knowledge, and voiced support for a law if it reached his desk. Scrutiny over stock trades continues to grow, particularly after Trump ally Marjorie Taylor Greene purchased large amounts of stock just before a market-moving tariff pause. Greene claims she follows advice from a financial advisor. Previous efforts to ban congressional stock trading have failed to pass the Senate, but with Republicans now in control, the future of such legislation remains uncertain. On Capitol Hill, the Senate has voted to repeal Biden-era energy efficiency regulations covering 20 household and commercial appliances. The measure, sponsored by Senator John Husted, targets new Department of Energy rules introduced last October, which set stricter certification and labeling requirements for dishwashers, air conditioners, heat pumps, and more. The bill passed 52 to 46, with Majority Leader John Thune calling the regulations an unnecessary $1.8 trillion burden. Husted argued the rollback will give consumers more choices and ease manufacturing pressures. President Trump is expected to sign the repeal, marking a major reversal of Biden's green energy agenda. In education policy, the Trump administration plans to end $1 billion in school mental health funding by year's end. The funds, created under a 2022 law addressing gun violence, had supported the hiring of school counselors and psychologists. But a recent federal review found the programs conflicted with civil rights laws and emphasized a need to prioritize merit and fairness. Conservative strategist Christopher Rufo argued the funding promoted left-leaning ideologies on race and inclusion. The Education Department has confirmed the cuts and says it is exploring new models for supporting student behavioral health. And finally, the Supreme Court has heard arguments in a landmark case testing the constitutionality of taxpayer-funded religious schools. At the center is St. Isidore of Seville, an online Catholic charter school in Oklahoma. The state Supreme Court ruled the school's public funding violated the First Amendment's church-state separation, but advocates claim it's about equal access to education. The outcome hinges on whether Chief Justice Roberts sides with the court's conservative bloc. A ruling in favor of the school could open the door to publicly funded religious education across the nation. A tie would leave the lower court's decision intact. That's all for tonight's news update. Thank you for joining us. We'll continue to monitor these stories and bring you the latest developments. Stay safe, stay informed, and have a good night. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update.